Doctors of Reddit, what's the biggest case of faking it you've ever seen? 30 years old woman came to the ED with such excruciating belly pain. Paralyzed. Oh god it hurts. When you press there. Must have oxycodone now. ED doc said, if she can get out of the ED bed and do 20 jumping jacks, we can give her the oxy. She did 20 jumping jacks, then got kicked out of the edition. Doctors should get a side gig as a personal trainer. Haha, just some personal trainer tempting all their clients with drugs and then taking it away at the last second. My cousin got glasses. Her 7-year-old little sister also wanted glasses because she thought it was so cool to wear them. So she started telling her teachers she couldn't read what was on the chalkboard. And she'd squint at home and go incredibly close to the TV to watch things because she said she couldn't see things clearly. Her parents got worried and took her to the doctor. She read everything wrong on the vision test. Everyone seemed convinced that she needed glasses. But the doctor was a little concerned because the tests indicated she needed really thick glasses, and usually that wasn't the case unless there was a family history of vision issues. Her parents both had 20/20 vision and her sister only had astigmatism. They all realized she was faking it. So the doctor told her parents in front of her that she'd need some pretty intense eye surgery so she'd be able to see without glasses. They even wheeled in a machine to make it convincing to say they could do the surgery right then and there. She freaked out, confessed to faking it all, and started to cry. She got grounded for a while. I remember I faked it when my brother got glasses because I thought they were cool. Turns out I actually needed glasses. They found an astigmatism in my eyes. I never knew I needed glasses. I mean, how am I supposed to know what the world looks like to other people? Then I was amazed that I could see every detail of a tree. I'm an IQ and a nurse. We get a lot of malingering in the air. One day, one of our frequent flyers came in and started faking a seizure in Tridge. Now obviously I know this lady and she's fake seized a million times before. But this time it's in the lobby in front of about 30 people who have no way of knowing that it's fake. She's lolling around on the floor making a damn fool of herself and folks look horrified. Karen. I told her to stop seizing. So she did. Oh man. Would love to have seen the face of all those people watching this unfold. That doctor is a miracle worker. Had a patient when I was an intern feigning blindness. She would constantly be playing on her smartphone, only furiously trying to hide it when someone from the care team came into her room. The best was when my attending one day strolled past her room and threw his hand up in a highly exaggerated hello wave. She started to throw her arm up too, but caught herself halfway through, then threw her hand back into her lap and pretended to be staring off into nothing. A friend of mine likes to stick out her hand for a handshake when people come in feigning blindness. Nearly all of them instinctively meet her handshake. It's great to watch. When I was a kid I learned I could fake sick and get out of school. So 1 to 2 days a week I would get a migraine and hold my head and complain and I would get to go home. Eventually my parents took me to a neurologist who said maybe you just don't let him eat chocolate and sugar. I admitted to faking and was grounded for a long time. I grew up the opposite way. I would get 3 to 4 migraines a week, but everyone thought I was faking it because most days I seemed fine just because I was learning how to deal with them and try to act normal. It wasn't until 8 years after they started that I went to a neurologist who said I have chronic migraines, which I dealt with unmedicated for 16 years. Now I'm on medication. I feel like my childhood was wasted. A patient claimed to have all kinds of illnesses and would cough every minute or so. Have you tried coughing when you don't need to? It's like a normal cough, but you take the subwoofer away. Now imagine that, but 10 times more fake. I imagine a lot of Reddit just tried out their best fake cough to see if they could get enough bass. I know I did, and now my chest hurts. Went to fake cough, choked on own spit, ended up with a very real cough. Checkmate, doctors. Ophthalmology technician. People pretend to be blind all the time. Go to check their eye pressure with the tonopin, a device you poke them directly into the eye with, and they go, "What the duck is that thing?" I have a sort of opposite angle story for this one. A friend of mine is completely blind, as in, eyes removed as a toddler blind. She had a rare cancer. She's worn glass eyes her whole life, to keep the sockets from sinking in, as well as to limit the jarring appearance. Well, she had a new doctor she was seeing, so to speak, to get fitted for new glass eyes. I think that was why. When the tech brought her in, they told her they had to examine her eyes. And asked her to read the vision test chart. She kept trying to explain she is blind, and they were stuck on examining her. Whoa, your pupils aren't responding. No shit. She finally got so frustrated, she popped one glass eye out and said, "Here." She apparently always would pull that gag on folks doubting her and or teasing her. She's awesome that way. When I was a kid, I would plan my sick days way ahead of time. Had an old thermos that I would pull leftover milk, meat, whatever. Leave it on the windowsill in my bedroom, just letting it fester for a month. Of course the thermos was closed so no smells escaped. I set an alarm for the middle of the night, dumped the contents of the thermos on my rug, and ran in to tell my dad I was throwing up and so sick. However, this thermos monstrosity filled the entire condo up with horrible smells, and both me and my dad ended up puking into the tub at the same time every time we tried to clean up the rug. He had to take the day off work too. Needless to say, I never pulled that again. I was worried you were going to drink it in order to make yourself sick. Thank goodness that is not what happened. I'm not that big of monster. Just a normal gremlin. No doctor, but a funny story from work a couple years ago. Guy calls in sick for around 8 days, says on the phone he is really sick. Comes back to work the next week, tanned as duck. This dude hands a medical slip to the manager written in Spanish. On the slip there is an official seal from some random Cuban clinic. Guy walks over to me with a grin on his face saying, "Yeah, I'm probably fired." He was fired. Supervisor at a place I used to work called out sick. Came in the next day with a tan line right across the middle of his forehead from golfing in the sun all day. No one said a damn word. I told them I had to leave town because I had family members coming in last minute. I got written up. I should have taken up golfing. Not a doctor, but a nurse once had a patient having a seizure. The other a nurse and I knew she was faking it. He said as much. She suddenly stopped seizing, miraculously, looked straight at him, and yelled, "Shut up, fat boy." He and I laughed so hard. He, the other nurse, was referred to as such, fat boy, for a few months after that. My mom was an emergency room nurse. Years ago they brought a prisoner from the local pen in who seemed to be unconscious. The guards were suspicious that he was faking it. They checked his vitals and everything seemed to be okay. The attending doctor tried poking him in the foot with something pointy, nothing. Then he got an idea. They took a rubber hose and inserted it in the back of his throat, as if they were intubating him. That did the trick. He sat up very quickly, coughing and gagging. There's an even easier way. Just take their hand, hold it over their face, and drop their hand. If they are truly unconscious, or drunk, or very out of it etc., they'll smack themselves in the face. If they are conscious, they will always do something to lessen the hit, like make their hand land to the side, or they turn their hand and hit somewhere they think it won't hurt, etc. Sorta along the same idea. Working at a pharmacy we saw a guy come in to try and get a refill on some pain meds that had no refill. After pleading that his ear really hurt, we told him again we couldn't refill it. One of the other employees saw his step into a side hallway and take a pencil and jam it forcefully into his ear repeatedly, drawing blood. He calmly left and went to the ear. He came back a few hours later with a prescription for pain meds. It amazes me that people will risk permanent deafness for a fix. 4th year medical student. On my rotation and a trauma came in from a woman that had been arrested. During the drive the patient banged her head 4 times against the window of the police car and then went unresponsive. She came to us with a bruise over her forehead and unresponsive. We all smelled BS, but the patient was a great actor, didn't even flinch during the digital rectal exam, which is standard for all patients that come in through the trauma bay. Though some of the nurses said that they caught her peeking at us when would leave the room. We ended up getting a CORD scan, which was normal, and was even considering intubating her to secure her airway when our attending finally walked over to her, opened her eyelids, and held them open while telling her to wake up. Finally she started fighting to close her eyes and the jig was up. The doctor called her out and she proceeded to start screaming at us. She was much more pleasant when she was pretending to have a brain injury. Why is a digital rectal exam standard for all trauma patients? Assessing for rectal tone can give insight into spinal cord/neurological injuries. Presence of blood in the rectum could indicate GI/pelvic trauma. Truthfully, recent studies have debated its usefulness and reliability, especially given the potential for making a traumatic situation more traumatic for a patient. But my institution still does it. My brother was an EMT for 2 years, and he told me this. People will try to use the ambulance as a means for transportation from Fulton to Oswego because the hospital is in Oswego by faking seizures. Sometimes when the head EMT guy was feeling fun and knew that the person was faking, he'd say something like, "Man, it's weird that he's having seizures, but not peeing himself." Apparently the person would kind of snap out of it for a second, weigh up the repercussions, then either pee themselves or stop faking. I thought that was hilarious. I'm not a doctor but a nurse. There was a geriatric patient taking advantage of the call bell because she was an attention seeker. She always needed really basic things to get done for her because she thought the place was a hotel. It was a rehabilitation ward and we should try to motivate patients to do as much for themselves as possible. She would ring the bell for reasons like "Please lift the blanket up for me," or "Please pass me my phone," or "Please feed me," and claimed that her hands didn't work. I caught her several times lifting herself off the bed with her hands, grabbing her phone when it rang. You get the gist. After days of saying no, and that she needs to start doing things for herself, she grew more and more frustrated. I didn't know what to tell her. I just looked at her and blinked as she slowly released her death grip off me. I guess I healed her hands. Praise the Lord. Nurse for an ophthalmologist here. Had a 21-year-old new patient claiming to be completely blind from a sudden and severe glaucoma diagnosis from a previous unknown doctor. Would feel around while walking, tried to keep eyes rolled back into his head. The whole 9 yards. He said he is a famous YouTube rapper that is now unable to make videos or earn a living. I exclaimed to have heard of him before and very excitedly asked him to search and show me his YouTube channel on my phone so that I could subscribe. He took my phone out of my hand and effortlessly found the YouTube app and typed away in the search bar. Oh, and of course his eyes were back to normal and focused. A nurse. Bringing a patient back to a room who said he had kidney stones. I had him stop at the bathroom and get a urine sample. Dude comes out with a specimen cup that literally has a piece of concrete in it. Looked him in the eye expecting some sort of joke. He was serious. I threw it away and walked his dumbass back to the waiting room to contemplate his stupidity. My next door neighbor would drink a 12-pack of Mountain Dew a day and keep kidney stones year round to get pills. He had a pretty sweet deal too, getting 90 Loracets, 90 Xanax and 90 something else, I forget, every month from his doctor. He just couldn't stop doing other drugs and pissing dirty. I tell this story just because I was impressed with his determination to hurt himself and get surgery once a year just to get high. Like, the absolute determination that takes. My mother is a recovering addict and had been getting the same pills around that time, and I don't recall her intentionally hurting herself. She just went with already messed up issues before she got herself into a clinic to get clean.